Well, somewhere between here and there, all sorts of things have happened, and I want to sort of start with a recent thing that's happened in your life, and then we can kind of work our way back in there a little bit. But you were just on sabbatical.
I was.
What an awesome concept.
Yes.
And so the renewal is a sort of fundamental idea about sabbatical. Of course, you must publish or die as well in the academic world. So there's that. But you went away and like hung out with some Benedictine folks.
Yeah.
Right? Tell us a little bit about that.
When I put my sabbatical proposal together, Sabbath as a concept has been very important to me in the last number of years. I regularly go to St. Benedict's Monastery outside the city, hang out with the nuns there. And
Always.
They're a laugh.
Yeah, they are actually.
When you I just couldn't divorce the concept of a spiritual sabbatical and a sabbatical, an academic sabbatical, and spiritual renewal, a Sabbath, which is where the word comes from. So I actually included in my sabbatical proposal things about spiritual formation, and I knew I was going to Collegeville, St. John's University, which is attached to St. John's Abbey. And there's a very lively Benedictine community, brothers and their Benedictine sisters, just 10 minutes away. And you are more than welcome to pray with them 4 or 5 times a day. And so I didn't often get up for morning prayer, I'll be honest, but midday prayer.
There are lots of ways to pray.
Evening prayer. Oh yeah. And napping is a good form of prayer, I've learned. And so, no, it was just amazing to come together as a community, do these very simple, you're praying the Psalms, really. In the evening, we would sing some. Usually midday, we would just read a couple and pray and go. But it created this really interesting rhythm to the day and rhythm to life that the Benedictines do so well. Work and prayer. Got to eat with the monks, which was quite a treat. Because they eat in silence, they read books. So like somebody's reading to them. They were reading Anne Lamott, which I just love. And I was fascinated by that. I think they love books. So who picks the books? They used to pick mysteries, but some of the monks who traveled would get upset and they wouldn't find out who did it. So
right. And if they were reading, like Father Brown or something, right, they're pretty short.
So they were reading Anne Lamott, and I thought it was so cool. It was really interesting. A great experience. And something that I've tried to bring back. It's not always easy to set that time aside, but when it's there and it's a space that's already created, it's quite nice. The community is so important. The different formations of my life, whether it's St. Benedict's Table or House Blend or whatever. So.
Well, that's kind of an intersection I wanted to talk about a little bit too, Mike, because I mean your academic work and your personal passion and interest in many ways is deeply immersed in the storytelling milieu of the 21st century.
Yes.
In film. The Benedictine rule is 1,500 years old.
Yes.
This is a fairly long-standing practice of spiritual formation. So Sabbath notwithstanding, the idea of stopping and stepping aside, what did it feel like to encounter that kind of an old rhythm in terms of spiritual formation and to come back into the world where you are? I mean, you're working on a book about the mothering of a character in James Bond films, right?
I just published that.
So, that's quite an intersection. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about feminism. Let's talk about not feminism in the Bond films, and let's practice the Benedictine rule.
It sometimes creates for a bit of a disjointed life. I'll be honest. Coming out of it was hard. Not just the expectations suddenly at my time. You're in real life, you can't just stop and pray. There aren't a bunch of monks to pray with. But I've actually found that the practices, the simplicity of the Benedictines, it's all about finding an evenness to life. So there's a time for work, and there's a time for prayer, and all of those things work together. And you just have to discipline yourself, spiritual discipline yourself to take that. What that's often meant for me in my regular life. I probably don't watch as much TV as I used to, like just cutting a few things out. I don't go on technological fasts or anything like that, but just maybe thinking a little bit more intentionally about where I spend my time. That's been a big part of it. And thinking a little bit more explicitly about thinking about living in community. It's funny, you know, the title, grammar notwithstanding. Still know nothing about me. I'm a total introvert, so I would be very happy to sit up here and talk for a really long time, and you guys still know nothing about me. But I've also learned that I have to live in community, that that's part of that's called the call of life in Christ. And that recognition, that, oh, I have to talk to people. That's hard.
Yeah. It's a good thing that Benedict, in setting up the rules, said work and prayer.
Yes.
Kind of they're the kind of the dihedral, the corner piece of the book of, that marks this whole thing. And I mean, he's talking to the monastics, so their work is the divine office. Our work is typically not. Our work is the everyday things we do. But that idea of the balance of work and prayer is partly why this rule has survived as long as it has.
It's not a demanding rule. Like that's, you know, there are more demanding versions of it, the cistercians, things like that. But as the rule of Benedict stands, it's quite manageable. And that's a big part of it. This is not like an austere life. This is a life of simplicity,
right?
In the best sense of the word.
So the idea of a simple life, aside, I mean, we can't do that without making a very radical choice, generally speaking. It's not that we have to become monastic in the formalized order sense of the word. There are other ways to practice the things that underpin monasticism. But the idea of a simple life might not be accessible to us. What did you learn that's shareable about a simpler life?
I would say the biggest takeaway was that simplifying your life is totally possible. It is not as...
It's not as daunting as we
It's not as
imagine
daunting.
it is.
It's certainly as revolutionary as it sounds, and countercultural as it sounds, but it's not as daunting and impossible as it sounds.
Do we get binary about this? Is that part of why?
I get binary.
Like we kind of go, I either have a complex life or I have a simple life. There's nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
So simpler
Yes.
is actually a pretty important concept when it comes to...
And that's been an ongoing process for me, because I tend to think in binaries. It's an intellectual shorthand. They make sense in my head, probably nowhere else. But it's the fastest way to think about something for me. So recognizing the gray area in between the binaries is not always the easiest thing for me. But coming to that understanding that simplifying your life can be as radical as you choose to make it, and extreme as you choose to make it. But choosing where you spend your time or how you spend your time, choosing time for God in prayer, that's doable. That's totally doable.
And there's probably some other, like that work and prayer couplet is sort of, like I said, sort of like the corner piece, but within the Benedictine rule, it gets broken down further.
Yes.
I've not been immersed in this, so I did make a couple of notes, but I know that in that rule, Benedict says to the monks and the nuns that there are 3 vows that are essential. He talks about stability and conversion and obedience as their vows. And then he talks about 5 practices. He talks about prayer, work, study, hospitality, and renewal.
Yes.
When you think about those practices, which are really kind of the hands-on part of the rule, and coming back to this setting, with those having been immersed in a community that lives by this rule, did you feel like you were able to identify particular aspects of your own life practice that could connect to each of those: prayer, work, study, hospitality, and renewal?
Yeah, some more easily than others. Certainly study. That's easy. That's what I enjoy. Reading books.
Well, and let's stop there for just a second, because I mean, we're in an academic environment, so it'd be easy to kind of go, well, study, we're assigned study. Like, nobody needs to give me a Benedictine rule, so I'll study. I just need to do it or I'll flunk, right?
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily what the rule is talking about, is it?
No.
So what is the rule talking about?
The rule is
when it
talking
comes to
about studying Scripture. mostly.
Studying for the formation of spirit in a
Yes.
really deliberate way, right?
Yeah. Interesting kind of side note on that. While I was in Collegeville, I came across a prayer by Thomas Aquinas, which is all it's his prayer for study. And it's all about as I sit here, open my mind because you are truth. It doesn't matter what that looks like. You are truth.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of balanced my studies a little different than maybe Benedict imagined, James Bond.
So yeah, the particulars might vary, but
yeah. But there's still truth. So I've kind of adapted that one. Hospitality, that's a challenge as a real introvert.
Mm-hmm.
I can turn it on for a while, but I get very tired afterwards.
So what does it look like? Are there ways to offer the thing that Benedict is talking about when he talks about hospitality for the other introverts in the room? Because there's a couple of us. I'm with you.
I suspect.
Yeah.
I might be looking at something.
Isn't it so lovely to live in the 21st century when people are writing popular books about how important us introverts are, and quiet people?
God.
I know. It's taken some centuries.
Yeah.
But there are other ways to offer the thing that is called hospitality, other than offering the extrovert version of being social, are there not?
Absolutely. And again, I think it's how you do it. Like,
does House Blend fit into this?
yes.
That's what was kind of going on in the back of my head when I asked the question.
So I have multiple worshiping communities in my life. One of which is a ministry that my wife founded and continues to run called House Blood Ministries. There's a poster at the back for something that's probably well out of date. Every Tuesday night we have a potluck. It's at 7. Everyone's invited. Anybody's invited. Bring something. We have a shared meal together, and then we do a very simple liturgy, and that's it. 7 to 9. Close up the house. There's a community house that we have on Furby Street. If anybody's interested, you're more than welcome to come. And that's been really interesting and challenging for me in lots of ways because it's people who I probably wouldn't encounter always in my regular life. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
But that's been interesting, and challenging in a very positive way.
When we move out of our comfort zone, socially or otherwise,
Yeah.
whether we move into a community like the one that meets at House Blend, I'm not trying to draw a boundary around what that community's like, but it's not the one you're in every day, is the point.
No.
And we can move in other directions into communities that are not comfortable for us. A similar kind of attitudinal effort needs to be made, doesn't it? Like we are deliberately saying, I am not coming to this for what I'm going to take away from me.
No, exactly. And just my disposition and the type of person that I am, I like to engage in conversation, and sometimes that can be critical, not in a confrontational argument sense.
Right, but in a cerebral or scholastic, yeah.
And we actually have a mutual friend, Frank.
Yes.
Who, Frank, God bless Frank. Frank,
You'd have to know Frank to know we're just sitting here looking for words.
yeah, Frank is the most sincere believer I've ever met, but
Jesus saved Frank's life.
Jesus saved Frank's life.
It's as simple as that for Frank.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's the end of it. And, well, no, that's not the end of it.
No, that's the core of it.
That's the core of it. But there's all this stuff that every once in a while Frank will say something to me, and I love him. And he's like, in heaven we're all gonna have a mansion. And I'm like, I don't know if I believe in a literal mansion in heaven. But for Frank, that's it. And I'm like, okay.
And when I listen to Frank say something like that, because I've had these same kind of conversations, if I'm doing well with some of these kind of things, the first thought that goes through my head is not, oh come on.
Yeah.
The first thought that actually goes through my head if I'm doing well is, you've had no home, haven't you?
That's exactly right.
Of course there's going to be an actual place,
for you.
right? This is essential to Frank's idea of God being good, is that there's walls and a roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's mine.
Yeah.
It's mine.
Yeah.
No, we have the exact same experience with Frank.
Yeah.
And that's it. Maybe I'm being too hard on myself, but I think in a lot of circles in my life, a lot of times in my life, I would have been very dismissive of Frank.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I don't mean that in a bragging way or anything. Frank and I are never going to see things theologically the same way, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
That-
We can have
Frank's theological circle in common might not be that big. But he's a pretty beautiful soul.
He is, like, and he is so on fire, like in that kind of old evangelical
Yeah,
sense.
tent meeting sort of sense.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But his worldview is very different from mine. And I mean, Frank's just one of the characters, and they're literally characters, at House One that I meet. Again, you know, George. George has severe physical disabilities, and that guy gets around everywhere. Like he knows everybody. Everybody knows him, and how he manages to make his life so full, it's utterly inspiring.
George is visibly disabled.
Yeah.
And physically, and I'm a musician at St. Ben's as well on occasion, and so when we do communion at St. Ben's, people come up right past the musicians. And some of those environments where the musicians are bludgeoning the community sonically, it's pretty low-key that way, and so you can kind of hear what's going on. And Frank was walking past me. I can't remember the song we were singing, but it was one of Jenny's tunes, What's Coming. You know, just a hopeful song about being with God,
Yeah.
broken things being made right. But it was a very affirming song. And I'm watching, shouldn't have started down this pathway. I'm watching George walk, progress past me
With his
canes, and you know, and obviously this involves enormous effort, some pain, and he's singing this song.
Yeah.
And I was selfishly deeply grateful that I was just playing bass. Actually singing, because I was just wrecked,
Yeah.
right then. Because I'm thinking, you know something about this song that I don't know. And I'll never know without that kind of suffering. Like there's no other path. Yeah. And so being in community with people, though, who've learned things like that we can never know. And mutually, this is the truth, I believe. Like we learn things that nobody else learns. This is part of the beauty of this being a both individual and communal faith.
I hope somewhere Frank and George are talking about this guy Mike. Thinking things.
Yeah. Mike's not probably much good with a wrench, is he? Because
No,
his brain is somewhere else.
He's a nice guy. He lives in the clouds.
Yeah, 30,000 feet. How does he even breathe on it? I know. But so what an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And part of having that opportunity is making it. I think it's Dallas Willard who basically says that basically a disciple is somebody who makes it their commitment to arrange and rearrange their life so that they can walk more and more in the actual way that Jesus would walk if Jesus were them. So a little different than what would Jesus do.
Yeah.
There's some nuance to that, but a really important idea when it comes to
Doesn't
being
fit
formed
on
spiritually. No, yeah, I know. Trust a philosopher.
Yeah.
Not quite fit it on the bracelet. There's so many places I wanted to go. We're not done yet. So I just wanted to, sorry, Mike.
I
I know, we're close.